Now available in paperback and e-readers, ISIS Legacy. Sorority secrets of the goddess next door are revealed in this all-new ISIS series adventure. Get ISIS Legacy in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere. President Joe Biden recently signed an anti-lynching bill into law. Now, this anti-lynching bill is supposed to make it a federal crime if anybody tries to lynch a person, especially a black person. Now, this anti-lynching law is about 50 years too late, but that's not stopping your Joe Biden because he's desperate to try to win back all of the black voters who he alienated back in December of 2020. Now, back in 2020, your Joe Biden told many black voters to take their booties to the poll in an effort to get the evil orange man out of office. And many black people did take their booties to the poll because they thought it was their patriotic duty to save democracy, and they went and elected Joe Biden by helping him get cities, counties, and even states. And your Joe Biden, in his expression of contempt, then told the Congressional Black Caucus and many civil rights leaders like Al Sharpton he could do nothing for all of those black voters who made the effort to go out here and help get him the 81 million votes that put him into office. Now, if it wasn't for those black voters going out here, your Joe Biden definitely would not have won. And your Joe Biden, who was arrogant at the time, thought he did not need the black vote anymore, and what he wanted to do was go out here and think he could coast on minorities such as Asians, Hispanics, and Indians and Arabs, and have them be the new so-called minority voting bloc. Unfortunately, over the last year, your Joe Biden's approval rating has fallen due to his numerous missteps with the Keystone Pipeline, Afghanistan, and the economy and the COVID-19 pandemic. And now your Joe Biden's approval ratings are at under 40%. And with his approval ratings being under 40%, your Joe Biden is starting to get nervous, and that nervousness turned into anxiety when he saw Glenn Youngkin beat Terry McAuliffe in the 2021 gubernatorial race. And when he saw Terry McAuliffe lose the gubernatorial race, that's when your Joe Biden realized he was up shit creek without a paddle, and he went to try to go back to try to win back black voters. Now, your Joe Biden has been making efforts to try to win back black voters by pandering to your baby boomers and your black women. And he does this by going out here and talking about a John Wright's voting rights law that actually does nothing for foundational black Americans. And he also did it by nominating the first black female Supreme Court Justice, Ketanji Brown Jackson, who is supposed to represent the first black woman on the U.S. Supreme Court. Now, these gestures by your Joe Biden, they are not anything positive for foundational black Americans. They are passive-aggressive gestures to passively show that your Joe Biden is paying attention to the needs of black voters while aggressively giving them absolutely nothing tangible in return for the votes that he basically took for granted and the voting bloc that he alienated. Now, your Joe Biden, what he's doing with things like that John Lewis voting rights bill, nominating Ketanji Brown Jackson, and this anti-lynching law is basically making a series of empty symbolic gestures that are meant to make your baby boomers and your black women feel good on the surface, but don't provide anything tangible to the black voting bloc at all. Because this anti-lynching law is about 50 years too late, because the last time we had a foundational black American lynched in this country was back in about 1970 or so. So this anti-lynching law, while it is on the books, it's not really going to have any sort of real serious impact unless the federal government is going to reopen the case of Emmett Till and charge your Carolyn Donham for the murder of Emmett Till, because according to the facts that were presented in several documentaries, your Carolyn Donham stated that it wasn't the fact that Emmett Till whistled at a white woman that led to her husband and her brother going out here to lynch Emmett Till. No, your Carolyn Donham was the one who instigated the murder of Emmett Till because she was crap testing her husband and was looking to see what she could get away with by trying to get him to murder Emmett Till. And based on that evidence, your Carolyn Donham, even though she's in her 80s, qualifies as someone who needs to be tried under the anti-lynching law, but we don't really see any sort of efforts to try to go after your Carolyn Donham with this law. And this is where your Joe Biden is disingenuous as related to signing this anti-lynching bill into law, because, again, passively, it looks like he's doing something for black voters, but aggressively, this law will not have much impact on foundational black Americans and getting foundational black Americans justice. Instead, this law will be used to prosecute those who attack so-called minorities like members of the alphabet community. And the big problem with your Joe Biden as related to these kinds of policies is the fact that he continues to think that he can outsmart foundational black Americans as related to not providing anything tangible. He thinks that he's dealing with the same types of people like these baby boomers and many of the silent generation who would be happy taking an empty symbolic gesture like a first black Supreme Court justice or some sort of voting rights law or some token nomination like a Ketanji Brown Jackson, and thinking that these empty symbolic gestures have value with the members of Gen X, Millennials, Gen Y, Gen Z, and Generation Alpha. But these gestures are seen for what they are, absolutely nothing of value that helps black, foundational black Americans progress, because we are past the days of you giving us the first black female Supreme Court justice or some archaic voting rights law, because we already have a voting rights law of 1965, and we also have a 13th and 14th Amendment, that guarantee the rights of all foundational black Americans to vote in this country. And most black Americans are tired of being taken for granted by Joe Biden and his party, and we're more tired of the paternalistic attitude of many members of Joe Biden's party who think that they can go out here and think that they're so smart that they can go out here and come at us with these empty symbolic gestures and think an empty symbolic gesture is going to win them our favor. No, those days are over, because now more and more foundational black Americans are understanding that this administration has no real, genuine interest in helping foundational black Americans, because when we watch as your Asians get an anti-Asian hate bill turned into a law in a couple of months from your Joe Biden taking office, and then we watch as your Afghans, your Mexicans, and now your Ukrainians are now being pushed to the front of the line, we see that this disrespect that is directed to us is the way that the administration is going to do business with us. And we are tired of the baby boomers and their covert contracts where they sit there and talk about, oh, we just need to go along and eventually they'll get to us. No, if we went out here in the largest numbers to go out here and secure this office for your Joe Biden and his party to give them a majority in the House and the Senate, then we need to be put as priority one as related to real tangibles, because we came out here and gave real tangible votes as related to getting him into office, and there is a price to pay for getting him into office. And if we cannot get tangibles in exchange for our votes, then we need to go out here and walk away from this party, because this party has treated foundational black Americans with contempt from the time your Joe Biden got elected by saying he couldn't do anything for us. And it has further treated foundational black Americans with contempt by going out here and putting Asians who voted for Donald Trump first, and then going out here and putting non-citizens like your Afghans, illegal immigrants, and your Ukrainians before foundational black American citizens. I really am disgusted about the fact that your Ukrainians can go out here and get $13 billion, but foundational black Americans cannot even get a dollar to help them be able to take care of themselves, even though many were laid off as related to the pandemic, and many still have not gotten any sort of job to get themselves back up on their feet. Your foundational black Americans have not gotten anything tangible from this administration, who was so desperate to sell us that the evil orange man was such a racist and so evil, but they cannot look in the mirror at all of the evil they have been doing to foundational black Americans ever since they took power. Ever since they took power, all of the contempt you express to foundational black Americans is good and okay, and it's okay for you to condescend, talk down to foundational black Americans, and then try to offer them these minor policies that do absolutely nothing for the progression of foundational black Americans. No, we are past the days of everybody else getting tangibles, and this law is another, again, empty symbolic gesture being thrown at us foundational black Americans. And one of my viewers wanted to know what an empty symbolic gesture was. An empty symbolic gesture is something that looks like it has value on the surface. It's a symbol of something, but in actuality, it does nothing for anyone. For example, your Ketanji Brown Jackson is the first black woman to be a Supreme Court justice, but your Ketanji Brown Jackson has gone out here, is married to a white man, divested from the black community, and has gone out here and actively ruled against foundational black Americans when she was a judge in court. So yes, you have a black person in a position of power symbolically, but her values and her morals are basically the same as a female white supremacist. And your Ketanji Brown Jackson is just as much a white supremacist as any white woman, such as Ginny Thomas, the wife of Clarence Thomas. So there is no difference between a Ginny Thomas and a Ketanji Brown Jackson, and if it wasn't for her skin tone, she would not be of any value to your Joe Biden. And the whole thing is that that's what makes her an empty symbolic gesture, because yes, you have a black person in a job, but that black person is not about empowering black people. That black person is not about helping black people. That black person is not about changing anything for black people. And these policies that Joe Biden wants to put in place, like this anti-lynching law, this is not about helping black people. This, again, is passive-aggressive. And yes, you have an anti-lynching law in place symbolically to say, hey, we're going to go out. We have a law in the books that will punish somebody for lynching. But the whole thing is that this law will never be used to go out here and actively punish someone like your Carolyn Donham. Your Carolyn Donham, or Carolyn Bryant, or whatever she calls herself, she should be the first one in line for this law. But I doubt these white supremacists would go out here and take this 80-year-old grandmother and make her suffer the same way many Nazis go out here and suffer. Even though they were in their 80s or their 90s, those Nazis were taken out and tried and convicted. Whenever people found a Nazi, they made sure that that Nazi was punished, but I doubt that will happen here. And again, your Biden administration shows us all how they are just so disingenuous with these policies, because they sit there and say, oh, we want to give you something, black people, but in actuality, you're giving me nothing at all. And you're giving me nothing at all because what you're giving me, yes, on the surface, it's looking like something, but it has absolutely no value whatsoever. So when I look at this whole situation with your Joe Biden and this anti-lynching law, again, this is another slap in the face to your foundational black Americans, and it's a slap in the face to foundational black Americans because it is the kind of disrespect that is shown to black people, and it shows us that our vote has no value to Joe Biden, and this is another reason why foundational black Americans need to stay home in November. Now, if you want to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. And if you want to pick up some of my books on the SJS Direct imprint, like the ISIS series, the E-Steam series, the John Hayes series, and the books of the Spencerella trilogy, you can find those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find them on Smashwords, the iBook Store, and Google Play. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Spellbound, A Darker Shade of Black. Get your copy today at your favorite online bookseller.